Felicia Cardi, a Cardi consultant and a member of the New York Women Communications Program Committee. And we'd like to thank you for joining us tonight at Cocktails and Conversations, Strategies for Success and How to Leverage Diversity and Inclusion Resources. We'd also like to especially thank News Corp for graciously hosting this event, and we appreciate their continued support. And we'd like to thank our panel and moderator for taking the time to share their expertise. When I thought of developing a panel on diversity and inclusion, I saw Sylvia and Keela present their study on sponsorship. And that's when I was determined to have the panel based on her research with industry executives to help us understand how it would translate into their different fields. Having sponsorship and executive presence are game changers within career advancement. And the panel tonight is going to share need-to-know information that will help us move forward with our careers and bounce back. And I know that there are members and non-members in the audience. The people that aren't a member of New York Women Communications, we hope that you'll take the time to stop by the registration table and join us tonight and sign up for membership and check out our online calendar. We'd also like to let you know about an initiative from the foundation supporting for New York Women Communications, the Member Empowerment Grant Program, which is for members of 2 years or more that are pursuing professional development to help their careers. You can apply online, and the application deadline is March 28th. At this point, I'd like to welcome Yvette Fernandez, Director of Community Affairs and Corporate Diversity at News Corp. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Felicia. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to News Corporation. It is our pleasure and privilege to co-host this evening's reception with the New York Women in Communications. Thank you to Nwiki and to Felicia Cardi for assembling such an impressive group of panelists to explore the role of diverse executive presence for career advancement. Also, thank you to the panelists for your partnership and efforts in making tonight's event a great success. We look forward to broadening and strengthening our mutual, beneficial, and supportive partnership with you. Speaking of our partnership with Nwiki, I also want to acknowledge my colleague, Audrey Pass, who is a senior director and producer of Fox 5 and Line 9 here in New York City, or New York and New Jersey. She is a board member of the New York Nwiki Foundation and responsible for strategic alliances and partnerships. Audrey has also played a key role in nurturing and facilitating corporate diversity's partnership with Nwiki. And I'm profoundly grateful for her commitment to Nwiki's, News Corporation's corporate diversity efforts and to empowering the next generation of women leaders in communications. So please, let's give us a round of applause for Audrey. Thank you very much. Our partnership with Nwiki would not be possible without Audrey.
Thank you. I'm sorry I spilled.
News Corporation is a global media and entertainment company which prides itself with providing a diversity of voices across all of today's media platforms, including television, cable, digital, as well as newspaper and book publishing. The company recognizes the importance of understanding and valuing the diverse audiences and communities that we both serve domestically and globally. We understand that there are 157 million women in the country compared to 152 million men, and that we make up nearly 59% of the labor force, and that women control $12 trillion of the overall $18.5 trillion in global consumer spending. We understand that African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Native Americans account for nearly 38% of the population and control nearly $3 trillion of domestic spending. And finally, we understand that we cannot ignore these dramatic demographic shifts. As a result, News Corporation has made diversity and inclusion an intentional business choice and effort that have measurable impact on our success in the global marketplace. Through the Corporate Diversity Department, News Corporation endeavors to provide diverse and underserved communities with access to opportunity in 4 core areas which are aligned with our business strategies. And those include workforce, community investment, supplier diversity, and finally developing multicultural business initiatives that reflect and respect today's diverse society. This last area of focus is exemplified by the development of businesses and content that specifically target diverse audiences, including Amistad Publishing, which is an imprint of HarperCollins Publishing and publishes works by and about people of African American descent. Bounce TV, which is a partnership between Fox television stations and Bounce TV. It is the first digital over-the-air network designed for African Americans. Fox Hispanic Media, which includes cable networks for Fox Deportes, Utilísima, and Nat Geo Mundo, as well as a broadcast network and our new national Spanish language network, TV network called Mundo Fox, which launched this past August. And finally, FoxNewsLatino.com, which is a digital media platform which features news, politics, and entertainment that impacts the Latino community in the United States. At the core, News Corporation understands that diversity of content is imperative for the growth and viability of the company. By casting a wide net, we are able to engage and remain relevant to a broader community of viewers. And that diverse opinions and ideas enhance our internal creativity and the company's vitality. In conclusion, I'm looking very forward to hearing from tonight's panelists on the steps they are taking to adjust their business strategies to successfully meet the needs of this increasing diverse marketplace while increasing and enhancing inclusion. Thank you again for being here, and I hope you enjoy tonight's program.
Thank you. And I couldn't think of a better person than to lead tonight's discussion than Barbara Frankel, who's the Senior Vice President and Executive Director of Diversity, Inc. Please welcome Barbara.
Hi, thank you. How's everybody doing?
Great.
Okay. So I read an interesting article about a week ago in the New York Times, and you probably read about this too. Joel Sandberg, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Facebook, has a new book called Lean In. Have you heard about that? So she's saying that women have to do it themselves, that they have to change the system. And the article was by Jodi Kantor, who's a long-time veteran journalist at the New York Times, and she said it's just the opposite. She was angry about this. She said companies have to change. It's not the women who have to change, it's the companies who have to change. So I'm saying, do we fix the women or do we fix the system? And I'm thinking about this a lot. And tonight you're going to hear from a panel about ways to do both. And I think that that's really what the ultimate answer is, that we have to do both. And so what you can do, what your company can do, and what should be done to give women the parity in executive office that they deserve. But we're still not there. Women are just 19% of the top level, which is CEO and direct reports of Fortune 500 companies. Now, I work for Diversity Inc., and we do something every year called the Top 50 Companies for Diversity. Some of you have heard of that? Yes, they say that. So that's about to be announced on April 23rd. So those companies are a little bit better. Of their top level CEO and direct reports, 24% are women. So 24% versus 19%. It's a little bit better, but it's not that much better. But there are some companies that are really doing it well. Maria Castañón-Mos at the end there is the Chief Diversity Officer of PricewaterhouseCoopers. They were our #1 company this year. She's anxiously waiting to see if they do that. And Craig Robinson is the Chief Diversity Officer of NBC Universal, which is also merged now with Comcast. And they're also a very good company for diversity, and he's going to tell you about that. He's going to tell you also about his personal experiences. He is a man, you may have noticed that.
Anyone who noticed that, would you please raise your hand?
But he's also a biracial man and an out-gay man, so he's going to tell you about his experiences being an outsider in a majority culture as well. And Judith Harrison, over here, is our Senior Vice President of Staffing and Diversity and Inclusion for IPG's Constituency Management Group. I got that right? Okay. And she's going to talk to you about her own experiences with sponsorship and what the sponsorship effect looks like in a communications company, which is relevant to most of you. And Sylvia Ann Hewlett, who's going to go first, who we had speak at a Diversity Inc. event and who I am a big fan of. Sylvia is the founder and the CEO of Center for Talent Innovation. Did I get that right? And she is a remarkable person. She's published often in the Harvard Business Review. I have read her books, her research on women, on global women, is quite remarkable. And she's going to talk to you about the sponsorship effect. So I'm actually going to sit down for 2 minutes because she wants to stand up, and then I'll come right back, not tripping on the wires, when she's done.
Barbara, thank you, and thank you, Alicia and Felicia and Yvette. And what an honor to be part of this distinguished panel tonight. It's a wonderful group. We've already bonded via a conference call and obviously know each other in terms of our involvement in this extraordinary journey that we're all on. So what I want to talk to tonight is some of the really powerful data that shows us how we can finally crack, this last glass ceiling. And I want to talk about the data around women and the data around multicultural individuals, because, I think that covers pretty much everyone in this room. We do work at the center on all of the new kids on the block, on women, on minorities, or multicultural individuals, on gay individuals, on Gen Ys, all of those folks that have a somewhat different value proposition and bring the power of difference to the marketplace these days and are therefore extraordinarily important in innovation and in growth. So let's just go to some of this data. What triggered this research is the very well-known fact that we are all stalling out. If you think of what we call the marzipan layer, that's kind of middle management, that is full of the most amazing women these days. 34% of that rich and sticky layer just below the top, right, is full of the most talented women. There's also a ton of multicultural individuals in that layer. About 27% of the marzipan layer is now female. Those figures look much better than 10 years ago. But as Barbara knows, the figures at the top have not changed too much. One of my favorite figures is that only 8% of the top earners in this economy are female. And that figure is a little bit less than 10 years ago. In other words, in terms of the stranglehold on power, right, we haven't shifted things too much. When we started this study, we discovered quite quickly you could not explain this story by qualifications or track record. Men and women, Caucasian and other, right, are doing very similarly in that marzipan layer. You really have to go to the what we call the relationships of power. And here's the deal. You either get a champion, in the next layer up in your company, who is prepared to take some risks on your behalf, or you will vanish. Now, this has gone on for generations, and the default position is that someone who is a leader looks to someone very much like them to tap on the shoulder, to groom for leadership, because they are most comfortable with that person. And I have a great story from an event I did 2 weeks ago. Sally Krawcheck, ex-head of Merrill Lynch, right? She's had her fair share of knocks over the last 5 years. She said, look, when I get really stressed out, when I really want someone that I can trust and rely on, who do I turn to? She said, blonde, southern women with a great sense of humor. Those are the folks I feel comfortable with. Now, she was kind of making fun of herself in some ways, but this is a human tendency. So since time immemorial, leaders have been replacing themselves by themselves. It's a mini-me kind of thing going on. So this stuff on the right, this is what mentors do. They often find us great opportunities. They often give us advice. But the stuff on the left is something a sponsor uniquely does in our data. To really go out on a limb on behalf of the younger candidate. To advocate for the next promotion, not just give you advice. And to give you a little air cover so you can take some risks because you never do anything very important in your job without risking failure. And without a senior person in your corner, you're not about to take that kind of risk. Go to the next one. Thank you. The other thing we found out is that the traditional sponsorship relationship also involves a lot of hard work on behalf of the protege. In other words, you're not going to get picked, whether you're a white man or a Hispanic woman, unless you deliver in very specific ways, and we see this in our data. You have to perform. This is at the heart of it. But we are all performers. This room is full of them. You have to be loyal, because unless the leader can rely on you to promote their legacy, to be loyal to the team and the corporation as well as to the leader, they're not about to pick you. And the third thing, which is so important, you have to be prepared to come to the table with something very distinct. Because if you're just a performer and a loyal person, you'll be someone's number two forever, right? If you actually want to get that promotion, you've got to come to the table with, quant skills, cultural fluency, a fabulous knowledge of 3 languages, amazing social media skills, something that distinguishes you. Women are particularly well positioned to do that, because these days the biggest emerging market in the world is the female marketplace, and women understand it in ways that men cannot. So what we're describing here is this kind of two-way street, and the reason that we're lifting this up and making it much more transparent and accessible for the new kids on the block is that if we don't learn how to do this, we'll be stalled. And as we see in the data, way too many women and people of color leave or languish. They don't get this kind of tremendous championship going on in their lives. Let's go to the next one. Well, we have a lot of data here. What we find is that if you look at everyone from ages 30 to 55, now not everyone's going to get a sponsor. But men are 46% more likely to have a sponsor in their lives right now, although women are 3 times more likely than men to have mentors. We do reach out and get ourselves a lot of guidance, a lot of advice. That happens for us all the time, and it's important. But unless you have a sponsor as well as a mentor, you're not going to get tapped for the next position. And the next figure is really quite devastating. Caucasians are 63% more likely to have a sponsor than a person of color. So what does a sponsor do? And the data is amazing. We find that if you've truly got sponsorship going on that fits the definition I've just been talking about, a sponsor has a magical set of impacts on your life. Men and women with sponsors much more likely to ask for and get a pay raise. It's often said that women don't ask. Not true. They ask all the time, but they don't get, because they're not sponsored. Because unless there's a senior person sitting around that table when your promotion or your pay is being discussed, you're going to be passed over unless someone speaks up and tells everyone else in compelling terms why you deserve that pay increase. Secondly, if you have a sponsor, whether you're a man or a woman, you're much more likely to stick around in the company. And why not? Right? There's a senior person who's in your corner, advocating for you, creating traction in your career. Of course you're going to stick around. Thirdly, and this goes to Sheryl Sandberg's point, we find that women with sponsors really hang on to their ambition. They sustain it. They're ambitious at age 40 as well as age 23, because the problem with ambition right now is that the young women in the workforce are as ambitious as men. But we're not suicidal. When we hit a lot of brick walls, we actually downsize our dreams. That is what happens. So sponsorship is the way of you being realistic about having this way forward, which is ambitious, and men and women do claim it. So hugely impactful on ambition. And finally, you can actually chart how people with sponsors really do climb the ladder at a faster rate than those without. And we've got, all kinds of data. But let's just go to the next slide, because before I finish, I want to talk about 2 roadmaps. And we've just published this big report. We know these concepts are all very nice and convincing, and we do have a whole lot of data behind it. And we've now done 3 studies with 12,000 professionals, a representative sample of 12,000 professionals from 40 different sectors. There's a lot of data behind this. But what we were aware of, people need tactics. They want to know how to make this happen for themselves. So we now have just published a report which lays out how, as a 35-year-old or a 41-year-old, you can actually make this happen for yourself. And I just want to cherry pick a couple of things. The second step, you have to figure out who you might try and win as your sponsor. You look up and you think, well, there is this person, 2 levels above me that I am working on a team with. How do I get in front of him or her and impress the hell out of them in terms of how great I am? And what we find is that women, if we could just go to the next slide. No, it's not, I didn't, let's go back. I'm realizing this is a very short PowerPoint. What we find in the data is that both women and people of color go after, as perhaps advocates, champions, sponsors, whatever you want to call them, someone that they want to emulate. They go after the collaborative leaders, the leaders that are inclusive, the leaders that really value the power of difference. The problem is only 16% of leaders in America are that way. Everyone else is either, a command and control classic kind of guy or a total maverick. And our advice is, go find some role models someplace else. Right? You don't have to like your sponsor. You do need to respect this person. They have to have integrity. But the person you want as your sponsor is the person with power. The person who has a voice at the table when you're being considered for promotion. So you have to look very objectively at who can help you actually climb the ladder and go after them. Men get it much more intuitively, particularly white men who are in the same social circles as the folks at the top. So, it is a very illuminating journey, because one lesson is distinguish between mentors, which can be tremendously helpful in as a safety valve in terms of shaping your journey. Get some role models, because we all want to actually change this game and make leadership in general much more inclusive. Improve on that 16% figure, right, when we're all in power. But right now, if you want to get promoted, you've got to get in your back pocket one of those folks who has power over your promotional reality. And we have created about 37 tactics in terms of how to bring this off. So on that note, I'm going to hand over.
Hey, thank you. That was very good. No more PowerPoint. Craig is going to just speak from the heart and tell us about his experiences.
Thank you. Great. Well, good evening. Very happy to be here with you. And I was mentioning to the ladies earlier, I was just at an event this past week in Black Enterprise Women of Power, where I was one of probably 3 men and 800 women, so I don't feel too terribly outnumbered here. A very empowering event. We had 30 people there from Comcast and NBC Universal, so it was really terrific. I suggest that to you if you have an opportunity to attend. I want to compliment Fox on the efforts that you're making, because I am a firm believer We have a great, and us having a lot of work to do in this industry, and I guess the saying is that high tides lift all boats, and so that's very much the way that we feel as well. I think what I'm most comfortable talking about is my personal experience, and I want to say that nothing that I say is any way in disagreement with what Sylvia has said, because we are a great partner of Sylvia and the Center for Talent Innovation, and the things she's talking about are extremely powerful, and we are currently developing many of them. I can tell you that my experience, my personal experience, was somewhat different. And the only reason I bring that up is because I think that what we know, and Sylvia touched on this, is that if you take a look at some of those numbers, not everybody in this room is going to have an opportunity to have that senior level sponsor. Because the numbers are pretty small, and there are a number of barriers to getting that sponsor. So don't give up on finding that sponsor, don't give up on following the roadmap. But while that's happening, I think there are some other things that you can also be doing simultaneously to possibly be lifting your career. And I was particularly struck by, I think, the one point, sort of scan the landscape for sponsors, and this really struck me too. And I talked about this on a call that we had a few weeks ago. So I know that Sylvia won't disagree with this, and that was that there's no question that the mentor, I don't know what I would call her, because I'm not sure what bucket she fell into, whether the mentor, the sponsor, or just the person that really jump-started my career and kept me from stalling was not a senior level executive. I was working at a television station in advertising sales. I was a sales trainee. It was part of a pipeline that was created for a minority. It was called the Minority Advancement Placement Program, I think, which you'd never call it today. That's how long ago it was. As Barbara mentioned, I'm biracial. I'm African American, Asian American, and LGBT, all of which I also was, of course, 30 years ago when I started in the industry. And I can just tell you that that was not, I didn't have a lot of role models on that business side at television stations, and even today you won't find a lot of folks like that. But I was working supporting a salesperson, an account executive, and many of you know what that may probably know what that is. It was a woman who was selling commercial airtime for a local television station. So she was an account executive, but she wasn't a senior level person. So the lesson here I want to tell you is that people who are in positions of influence to get you promoted are in a lot of places, are not always in the C-suite, they're not always at the executive senior level. She took me around because, and here's a lesson, I was doing a lot of her grunt work. So that's how you can become valuable to a potential mentor or sponsor. I would do the prep work for her and prepare her decks that she would then take out and present to the clients. And my reward for that was she took me to meet all of her clients. So I went around and I was billing, this was about a $150 million television station, and I was billing about $100,000. So that gives you an idea of how small my career was. And I had, every account that I had was somebody who hadn't spent on the station in 3 years. So they thought they couldn't do too badly. When she got promoted, they said to her, who should we give your agency list to? Because now she was going to be a manager. And she said, you should give it to Craig. And they said, the trainee? And she said, yes. And they said, why? And she said, because he's met all my people. Call around. My clients know him and like him. He'll be able to produce for you. And because of that, I went from billing $100,000 a year to billing $11 million a year. And that was the beginning of my career path. There's no
sponsorship example.
That's right. That's right. But I think that what I'm saying is I didn't, and I said this on a call, and Sylvia reacted to it. I said I never looked or I never scanned the landscape for a sponsor. The sponsors that I've seen in my life now, I've only discovered, and I think you're in the rearview mirror. So I think there are a couple of lessons. Look left and look right as well for people who can be your advocates, because people have, you're never really sure who has influence and what rooms they're in and can speak on your behalf, and you need to have ambassadors all throughout the company, not just at the very senior level. And these people that you work with will oftentimes know you better than that senior person and can be powerful. So again, I think you want that too, but I think that you can be doing that simultaneously. And that was what was so very, very helpful to me. And I tell this story as often as I can because sometimes sponsors and supporters are found in very unusual places.
I think that's a very powerful story. I also think it's important that everybody remember to pay it forward. And no matter what level you're at, to continue to advocate for other people. I have a question for audience, which looks, by my standards, to be relatively young. How many, that's a statement about myself. How many of you have mentors? I can't read that. Okay, how many of you, understanding that a sponsor is a political advocate, how many of you have actual sponsors? Wow. Okay. So there's a lot of work to be done, and Judith is going to tell you her own experience and how in a communications organization you can find a sponsor.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here this evening. I lead staffing and diversity and inclusion for constituency management.
Just a minute, can you hear her?
Can you hear me?
No, they can't hear you. You can hold the microphone. You can just hold it close to you.
Okay, that's better. Okay, so, as I was saying, I lead staffing, diversity and inclusion for Constituency Management Group, otherwise known as CMG. It is a division of Interpublic that houses leading global public relations, sports marketing, and branding agencies, including Weber Shandwick, Roland Harris, Octagon, Future Brand, and quite a few others. I began my career actually as a PR practitioner, so my experience includes line positions in communication as well as human resources. What really drives and inspires me every day is the opportunity to open doors for women and for underserved people in the marketing communications industries, and helping my companies to create a diverse and inclusive environment in which everyone's voice is heard. Everyone has an equal opportunity to advance and grow and contribute. So, I have been really fortunate in my career in that I have had several sponsors, senior leaders over the course of many years, who have been incredibly helpful to me in terms of helping me develop my skills. They've had a huge impact on the people and ideas that I've been exposed to, the ambition that I've embraced, which is to Sylvia's point, that's actually extremely critical as well. And they've just helped me overall in my progress. I would say that having the high performance that Sylvia talks about and the loyalty to these people, in addition to leading with yes, which was the last bullet on one of the slides, has been incredibly important and rewarding for me, and has been responded to by my sponsors with their creating roles for me that enabled me to impact my organizations in ways that I would never ever have anticipated. So, for example, leading with yes led to my first international role, which was recruiting senior leadership for our Asia Pacific operation. I've never done anything like that before, and frankly, I was terrified. It was really a very good word for it. But it worked out really well, and some of those senior executives are still with the company today, more than 10 years later, so I feel very, very good about that. Leading with yes has also led to outside opportunities that have been promoted by my sponsors from within. So, for instance, leading with yes led me to be tapped as the chair of the HR Roundtable of the Council of Public Relations Firms, which is our industry's trade association. It also led then to my being invited to join the boards of New York Women in Communications, New York Women's Agenda, and the Ron Brown Scholar Program, all of which support my personal mission of empowering women and people of color and leveling the playing field for everyone. I am incredibly fortunate to have 3 C-suite sponsors right now who are great for me in terms of promoting my visibility, introducing me to other senior leaders and clients, providing opportunities for me, and also funding for causes that are important to me. And just creating the opportunity for me to have impact not only on my organization, but on the industry as a whole. And I have to tell you that as a woman of color, I know exactly how rare and important that is, and I am profoundly grateful for it. So, I know the impact that sponsorship can have on your life. And then the question becomes, so how do you get a sponsor? And there was something I read in Sylvia's work that really stood out for me. She wrote that more than a third of U.S. managers are looking for star power in their protégés. So what does that mean in the communications industry? What do you have to do to be a star? And what do you have to do to create that clear personal brand that she also references in her work, so that you will be recognized by potential sponsors? So I have a few tips for you. First thing that comes to mind for me is emotional intelligence. I am sure every single one of you has been told a million times that we are in a relationship business, and that is the truest thing ever spoken. But what you need to do is think about relationships not just in terms of your client relationship, but look at it from a 360-degree angle. So your relationships with everyone are extremely important. This business is basically littered with the career carcasses of people who are really smart, really creative, were great with clients, but had absolutely no idea how to navigate up, down, and sideways in their own organizations. So they are now what I would call, in the words of one of my favorite old shows, brilliant but canceled. Remember that. That was really one of my all-time favorites. And it's just, a word to the wise. I would also suggest that you develop an area of expertise before anybody else in your company gets to it. So you want to own something. You want to have a really impressive foundation of knowledge. You want to be able to speak about this area passionately. You want to have a big, innovative, and executable idea surrounding this. And you want to then go and advocate for this idea with the right people. And you want to do it in a way that is emotionally intelligent, but also internally you feel as though your career may depend on this, because in some ways it might. So just be aware of that, think about that, think about what you can do to own something in your organization. Another thing that is extremely important is that you show business and financial acumen. I think that so many of us in this business are so used to that right-brained thinking, which is great in terms of creativity and intuition and helping us with storytelling, but people fail to grasp the importance of understanding finance essentials. So financial literacy is really critical in helping you to understand how your organization makes money, which is what your potential sponsors are very, very concerned with. So you need to get that. You need to then understand how to design your work to the extent possible to be aligned with your company's business goals. And having this knowledge is going to make people take you much more seriously as a potential leader. And last but not least, I would focus on executive presence, which is another area that Sylvia has done terrific work in. And that goes to something that we mentioned earlier. It's part of your personal brand. One of the things that was really important in terms of getting a sponsor was having a clear, identifiable personal brand. So what is that? And how do you get that? I think the simplest way possible to put what your personal brand is that it is every single thing that you do or say that impacts the way people perceive you. It is everything. So I think that what you need to do in order to develop that brand is think about your difference. Think about what is different about you, what you know, what you are, what you can do that is different from other people around you. Once you define that difference, then you start thinking about ideas that surround that difference, ideas that come from that difference, and you start pushing those ideas forward. And then you continue to have outstanding performance and loyalty that we've talked about as being important in this two-way partnership that is sponsorship. And then you add to that executive presence, which is basically three things. It's gravitas, it is communication, and it's appearance. So if you put all of these things together, voila, of a personal brand. And this will make it much more likely that you will be noticed by an executive, not only noticed, but noticed in a good way, by executives who would feel that they would want to go out on a limb for you and that you have potential to be a leader within the organization. So that's basically it. Those are my tips.
Thank you. So speaking of people and women who understand financial acumen in their company and who have executive presence, we have Maria Castellanos, who's someone I admire tremendously. She's the mother of 2 young children. She's the Chief Diversity Officer and a line partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers, which means she still has to meet with clients and she still has to bring in a lot of money. She reports directly to the CEO, and she's a very impressive person. So, after that.
So thank you for that. So I wanted to, just listening intently to what was said tonight, I wanted to comment more on the organizational side of things. And I would tell you that you started by saying that Sheryl Sandberg has a book that's coming out, I think, next week. And the question around ambition, and is it that we as women lack ambition, or is it something else that's going on? And I agree with you, Barbara, that there are 2 sides to this. And so I'll speak about the organizational side of that. It's very important that you look for sponsors in a variety of different places. If you have the distinctiveness about you to be able to capture those people and a personal brand that's distinctive, of course. But I actually think, and we believe in this at PwC, that there's something else that should be done, right, by the organization. And when I took on this role, I'm a line partner. I'm a CPA, right? So left-brain thinker, that kind of individual. And I was asked to take on this role by our senior partner, Bob Moritz. The reason I took on this role is because we were aligned in my belief that it's about the behaviors. At an organization where I've been with the firm almost 20 years now, sharing that people. And we talked about this notion around sponsorship and sponsoring one another. And certainly reflecting on my career, I've benefited from that as well. But the real power of PwC is having our 2,700 partners in an organization of 37,000 do exactly that and behave in that manner. And as I tell people, I think we can be successful because if a girl that grew up in El Paso, Texas, was able to be admitted into the partnership, serve clients, deal with some of our riskiest accounts at certain times, and really come up through the career and be noticed such that Bob Moritz asked me to take on this role, which is a sponsorship role. I get to do it for 3 years, 2 or 3 years, and then I go back to leading a market or serving in my line of service, etc. You're right, I'm still serving clients as well, and that's because there's a reason for that. And the reason is that it's very important that given my tenure as a partner, where I am in my career, I can get out in front of my 2,700 partners and tell them that we need to sponsor others, and that I understand what that means, and that I'm a partner in this firm that also leads teams and gets in front of clients. And so it depends on your organization, etc. But for us, having a line partner like myself lead diversity makes a lot of sense. So I just wanted to share that I do believe that as an organization, it's important that we go and do more than just say what we selected to do. And, we have a list of our highest potential women and minorities. And as a leadership team, we know who they are, we know their next steps, and we're accountable to helping them achieve those next steps.
Maria, if I can just kind of come in there. In symmetry to the Protégé roadmap, we have a sponsors roadmap, which is about what companies can do to create pathways to sponsorship. So I do believe it's a kind of, you're walking on 2 legs, right? You have what you can do to empower the individual journey, but companies are extraordinarily powerful in seeding and supporting this journey so that it happens pretty predictably for folks who are not white males. And obviously PwC does a very good job on that.
Right, now I will share with you that we're on a journey. And we're not where we want to be yet. And certainly getting recognized last year as #1 was outstanding. And I'll tell you, after that recognition, we go and talk to a lot of different companies about our journey and their journey and what we could do, we learned, we could do better, and really helping them understand where they are in their journey as well, what they could do next. But it's to me, what's been interesting about these discussions with different companies is that I think everybody wants to do exactly that, and that companies don't necessarily lead by saying, where's the ambition, where are the women? It's really thinking through, and the minorities. I mean, I'm the first generation Mexican American. So, I think that there is that impetus on the part of business to do more in this space.
Well, let me ask you a question. We've seen a lot of companies, most 3/4 of the companies that we deal with now have formal mentoring, and it's cross-cultural, so they try to have that element in there too, whether it's gender, race, ethnicity, orientation, disability, etc. Formal sponsorship is pretty rare still. Most companies and most people, when you do that, so you can force somebody to be a mentor and hope that it'll work out. You can't force somebody to be a political advocate, but you're doing that. Can you talk about that for a minute? You're doing that at PwC.
Sure, we do it from two perspectives. So I shared that we have 2,700 partners, 37,000 people. And we've asked our 2,700 partners to actually identify 3 women in the minorities, somebody that's not part of your familiar network, to say you're going to sponsor them. You mention them by name in your partner plan, which is what you get evaluated by, as well as the actions you plan to spend with those individuals. So we give them that as, we say, leaders lead and inspire others and bring others along. So this is one of your responsibilities. The other thing we do, though, is more centrally, we actually look at, by doing our talent reviews, where the talent lies. And we say, here's the talent, and we do identify them, the leaders, to actually sponsor that talent and identify the next moves, and we have discussions around what are the next steps for Maria, who's going to help her get those next steps, etc. So we are doing that. And again, we've found a lot of people embrace it. Am I going to sit here and tell you that all 2,700 are fantastic at that? No. To your point, right, probably only 18% of what the figure was that was mentioned are terrific at it, but I have to tell you that when people know that this is an expectation coming from the very top, which is Paul Moritz, my boss, that's something that we're going to get behind. Even this example, those that aren't in the 18%.
And how many of those sponsorships, I don't put you on the spot for numbers, but how many of them are multicultural? How many of them are with people, as we say, underrepresented groups?
Right. So in this high potential talent, we have both women and our minorities included as well. So, well, I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but it's important that we think of both of that, including our GLBT professionals, right, including that. And I'll have to tell you, I'm not going to forget the day I was in Texas at a conference that we sponsored for our GLBT professionals, and somebody just said to me, I said, what else can I do? I'm starting as a chief diversity officer. And they said something to me in the audience that I've never forgotten. They said, Maria, when you talk about the people that you're interested in helping in terms of their advancement, don't only focus on the women, but the minorities. Don't forget us.
No LGBT person.
Yeah.
You know what, we're getting a little low on time. I have a bunch more questions. They have lots more to say, but let's see if anybody in the audience has some questions so we can give you some time to interact. And if not, we'll come up with more questions.
Well, how soon after you walk in the door do you start this search? Do you wait a year or two, or is it from day one that you start scoping the landscape for this sponsor?
If I can answer that from the data, the earlier the better. In other words, these are muscles you need to exercise. And, Pat Philippe-Couchel, who is, currently the chairman of NDCU, we did an amazing interview of her for this report we just finished. She started as a secretary. But she, in ways that Craig will understand, in a unselfconscious way, knew that she needed to ride some coattails because she was ambitious. She wanted to transform her destiny. So she looked up, and the next one above her was pretty junior, right? But she said, look, to herself, I've got to figure out what this person needs most, and I will deliver it. And she's done that throughout her career. I mean, she did collect an MBA on the way and, you know, did this and that. But you know, Pat's journey, you have to read this. We have an 8-hour interview with Pat in terms of her sponsorship journey. And it's looking for those champions that can get you past the next hump in your career. So the advice is as young as possible. You know, I totally screwed up in my 20s. I was so clueless on this front. So here was the situation. I was an assistant professor at Barnard College, right? Very female empowering. I didn't understand at all that I needed to get to know the senior people or people just above me. And my favorite women on campus said, I mean, I was always good at friendship, I was great at teaching, I wrote lots of books, but that didn't get me promotion. You know, you needed someone who was rooting for you. So my favorite woman was the professor of history. She was fabulous. And there's absolutely no reason why she shouldn't be one of my best friends. But I thought, you know, I have these senior people. The problem was she had some major feud with the dean. And anyone she liked, everyone hated. And I positioned myself so badly that I got turned down for tenure. And it scarred me. And it made me understand, you know, there's nothing like failure to get you on the path, right? That I had to be a little more canny in terms of lining up my support, because I was left totally high and dry. You know, age 33, having done everything right. But I did not have political support, and I had not one single important person in my corner.
Anybody else? Great.
Well, I think that this may go without saying, but I, as everybody who always says that, and they go on and say the thing that would go without saying, so I'm sorry about that. But I want to be certain that when people leave, that they're approaching this in the right way, because this is a very tactical discussion, I think,
Yes,
strategic and tactical.
As a great set of words.
Which is very, very important. But how one goes about navigating the workplace is as important, because I think you have all worked with people who you have realized are climbers, who are schemers, who are only trying to be and curry the favor of people in power. And I think there's a delicate balance between what's being instructed here, which is real and valuable and authentic, but which can take that ugly turn very quickly if not properly executed. So I'm only a little bit concerned when you say how soon after you walk in the door. It's not day one, and it may not be day 30. What I would suggest is what you do in those first few months, what one does is, and it was all said here, get really good at your job. And if you figure out who's doing a good job in your organization, those people will be revealed who can be potential mentors and who are role models. But really focus on the task at hand. Because if one becomes too focused on who can I know and who can help me, that will be an unnecessary distraction to really getting the job done. You heard that. Getting the job done is number one, and it's particularly difficult sometimes for people of color or people who are outside of these traditional groups because the barriers can seem higher. Sometimes women have to be better than a man doing that job. Sometimes people of color need to be better because it's not often made easy to succeed. So I mean, I think that's a fact that we realize. So just be bulletproof in your performance. And the other thing I'll offer is be really nice to people that work for you. And be really nice to the people that are at the, that help you park your car, because you may either end up working with those people, or more, as important. I mean, they can be help to you in getting your job done in very surprising ways. So. Again, I'm not disagreeing with anything I think was said here, but I'm putting a slightly different spin on it, because we've seen those people and you don't want to be one of those people.
I think that's a really good point. I remember a young woman that I worked with years ago, and she started to move up really quickly, and she just literally, I used to call them, you mentioned the word secretary, that's an administrative assistant, for those who don't know that. But she literally started dissing those people in the, like she wouldn't even talk to them. She'd walk in and say, go get me coffee. She would forget it. I mean, and then when something happened to her and she wasn't so much in favor, those people could not wait to cut her to shreds. So,
you know, that's such a fabulous point. You know, we have an awful lot of data which shows that you need to be operating on both sides of this equation all the time. In other words, not just seeking sponsorship, but developing your own loyal followers. And what we find is that folks with a posse of fabulous proteges, even if you're 31, and these folks are pretty junior, or they're interns, it doesn't matter. They give you a lift, they give you attraction, they give you a reputation, which is extraordinarily powerful.
And I love that term posse now, in terms of, because I mean, there's an organization that you know called the Posse Foundation. You send these young men and women to great colleges, but they don't send them alone because you've got to have this group. The last thing I'll say is sort of a PSA for NBC Universal is that we have a mentoring program called Team NBC Universal. And what this is it's for director level women or people of color. So director, you know, next level would be a vice presidency. And these 5 people work with a senior executive. And the reason that our Chief Talent Officer, Kara Stein, came up with this is because there's a realization that sometimes that senior executive just, if they're senior enough, they don't have the time sometimes to give that one-on-one to that protege or to that mentee. So the beauty of this system is that not only are these women and people of color developing relationships with an executive champion, as it were, but they're developing them with each other. So they're creating a posse, that posse that you talked about.
Okay, we have time for one more question. Yes.
I think you've given excellent advice, but it all seems very particular to working within a corporation. I myself am a freelance television producer working in unscripted television. So how do you identify a sponsor when you're in a freelance world and each particular job may be a 3-week job, a 5-week job, an 8-week job at many different companies?
Judith, do you want to give that a shot?
That's a really interesting question. And I'll tell you, what it goes to me is everything that we've been talking about is really nothing different. Because we're talking about performance. We're talking about relationships. So you are forming relationships no matter where you are, no matter how brief a time you're there, you are still making an impression. You are still creating a brand that people will hopefully remember well. So that these people that you're working with on a freelance basis may very well become your sponsors and recommend you for additional freelance work. And, you know, if an appropriate opportunity comes along, they want to bring you into the organization. So it's really all the exact same advice that we've been given. And I want to just add something to our last question that we were talking about. Everything that everyone said was wonderful, and I completely agree. And I also want to add that while you're going into your new job and learning how to perform it really, really well, that you start looking around for where the knowledge gaps are that you might be able to help to fill in. So for instance, at the first company where I had a sponsor, it was a public relations agency, it was privately held, and it was sort of insular. And so what I saw was that there was a lack of competitive intelligence. Now, I had come from a recruiting firm, so I knew everybody in the business, basically. I could tell you about all of the cultures of all of our competitors, and I know who was where and what they were doing. And so having that competitive intelligence and being able to package that on a regular basis and put that forward and use that was incredibly helpful for me, and actually was one of the things that resulted in my being sponsored by people in the C-suite there. So it's just one of those things that you want to think about as you're performing, look around and think, what do these folks not know that I can help them with?
Okay, so one quick question, you get one word, each of you. What's the one quality you would say that holds women back the most? Maria, one word.
Just say what you want. I think that sometimes we believe that we can't say it, just ask for it.
Okay, great.
So you can't say more than one word.
She's not in communications.
No, I wasn't saying that wasn't a good answer. I just can't think of like, so what is the one word that is holding women back? Often confidence.
Mhm.
Cheers. 3 words.
Good girl syndrome.
Yeah.
I think that that is what just kills us. And the way I think of good girl syndrome is that quest for perfection that gets in the way of actually getting anything done. It is also that the quest to be nice, so nice that again, you don't get anything done. And thinking that your great performance is going to be recognized on its own, and Chairman Prince Charming is going to sweep you up and bring you up to the C-suite. Not going to happen. So, good girl syndrome to me is what gets in our way.
All right, Sylvia, the last one word.
You need to learn how to brag with humor.
Okay, that's good. I like that. That's a great note to end on. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.